Okay, so I am with my good friend and former associate Luke Wingo. Luke,
What's going on?
how you doing, man?
Doing great. Can't complain.
So the 1 year anniversary of our last lunch together just passed. Anybody watching this, bring them up to speed. What you been up to?
Yeah, actually pretty heartbroken about that. I was at Al's Wings, so I'm like, man, I really miss those wings. Yeah, my wife and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. She's working as a veterinarian still. I started at Morgan and Morgan in early August of 2019. Been doing employment litigation since then. Having a good time.
And look, that's plaintiffs or defense.
It's plaintiff's work, so we get a bunch of intakes and we screen them and we try to figure out what case will be best for us because we primarily operate in federal court, and facts matter more in federal court than anything else because majority of these cases are disposed of at the summary judgment phase, about 80% of them in favor of the defendant. So you have to have a really strong case to survive.
And is this like wrongful termination? Give me an example of a optimal fact set.
Glad you asked me that because I took some notes about a case that we actually worked on. You're absolutely correct on it. It's wrongful termination, discrimination, sexual harassment on race, gender. It can be all these types of things. Whistleblowers is a very broad law, and a bunch of different federal laws that apply to employment litigation. You may have heard it. You probably didn't, but you definitely have heard of Martina McBride. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, country western singer. This case really doesn't involve much of her, but it involves her husband, and it involves Blackbird Studios, which is a pretty prominent studio here in Nashville. So Mr. McBride operating a studio, but he definitely wasn't paying his studio workers overtime. So our guy, our plaintiff, Mr. Hansen, he actually he said, I'm going to file a complaint with the Department of Labor. You're not paying these people, right? And you're not treating the interns correctly. 3 days later, he's fired.
Oh man.
Yeah, so he's terminated. He's been an employee for about 7 years without any type of written reprimand. They came up with a bunch of lieu of excuses of why they fired him. Oh, he was a chronic complainer. The writing was on the wall. We already had his replacement. Just a bunch of things that the court didn't buy at summary judgment, so it went to trial. Like, all right, cool. In a lot of these cases, once you survive summary judgment, you're going to cut ties and just pay the man. Mr. McBride, stubborn, did not want to pay the man, and then he got hit with a six-figure verdict at trial. And, we're still in the process of finishing that case up, doing fees.
That's
and
awesome.
stuff like that. So
that's fantastic. Congratulations, man. That's amazing.
I did very little with this. I helped with the dispositive, and I was at the depositions. I did very little. I got in the tail end of it, but I do kind of put the feather in my hat as well, because I did
man.
very little.
And Luke, am I right? Most of this is going to be in federal court, not state court.
The way we operate, yes. Because usually there's going to be some state court or state law that was violated, and you can just lump it in with jurisdiction. And in federal court, typically a little friendlier, a little longer to get your case resolved. But at the end of the day, it's going to be more efficient than state court because a lot of these claims are very complex. That, not saying our circuit courts can't handle it, but federal court's probably the best venue.
And I'm not trying to get into all the business points of it, but if someone's fired and they hire you guys, I'm assuming it's contingency?
100% contingency. We don't operate at all, and like for retainers, you don't have to pay anything up front. Everything is going to be up front, by the firm. And we would just, if you get paid, we get paid type situation. If you don't get paid, we don't get paid. So even more incentive for us to, fight for you. And, Morgan & Morgan, you've definitely seen their buses. You've seen their ads. They're for the people. I thought it was corny at first. I'm not one person to, drink the Kool-Aid by any means, but they really are. I work with a great group of attorneys, great group of staff, and they really are trying to help out as many people as possible.
That's awesome. I know I see ads for them, and then I know a lot of the attorneys have been on these free webinars that attorneys have been taking while everything's shut down. So that's awesome, man. Real quickly before I forget, after you left, the entire firm now is like friends with the owner of Al. It's crazy, man. This guy. And he's awesome. So you missed out that part. And we even got some quarantine wings and pizza. It was pretty amazing.
I'm very jealous. Good place to eat, especially. I mean, I miss a lot of the food there. Nashville's, we got a lot of really, really good food here, but getting hit with COVID-19 right after that tornado, a lot of things have been kind of different here for at least the past 3 months or so.
Am I right? That tornado this tornado, how long ago was that?
The tornado was almost 2 weeks before like COVID-19 lockdown. So
and you were like close to that. Am I right?
Yeah, I live in East Nashville, and it came through Germantown, in East Nashville area, and just kind of the straight line across downtown. And I was about a mile from my house. Very fortunate, nothing happened. I mean, not even a missing shingle, but go a mile down the road.
Yeah.
A lot of the bars that I go to, a lot of the restaurants we go to, just completely destroyed. So they got hit with that, and then 2 weeks later, governor's saying, "All right, guys, you can't operate anything now." So it's kind of been an interesting way to move and deal with that. So
really quickly, behind your left shoulder there's a half a canoe. Am I right about that?
Yes, there is a half a canoe.
And it's a bookshelf, right?
Yeah, it's a bookshelf. The other house over in the other corner, just knickknacks in here and there.
The reason I recognize that is we had a client come to Luke's house. We lived in Broad Ripple, and I remember like, what the hell is that? And it's a canoe, a half canoe. And yeah, it was great for the client, saved us a bunch of driving.
Yeah, I was trying to save him some time. Yeah, my house is fine. I have a couple cops there. My wife wasn't very happy about that. She's like, "You're letting these criminals in our house." I'm like, "Hey, this could happen to anyone. He's not a criminal. One, he's innocent."
Yeah.
So
that's how far the associates of Marc Lopez Law Firm will go. If we have to, we'll do anything. Okay, Luke.
Come to the house.
You had your 2-year wedding anniversary during quarantine, am I right?
Yeah, we did.
How'd you guys celebrate your 2 years?
It was difficult. I had, really nice reservations at a steakhouse, and then like 2 weeks prior, it was like, "All right, guys, we're not doing reservations. We're not doing in-house dining." So for our honeymoon, we went to Thailand. Really not that many good restaurants doing takeout for Thai food. So one of our favorite restaurants is Korean. So kind of similar, not really. And then there's this like tiki bar called Chopper in East Nashville that's doing like to-go drinks, like Mai Tais and kind of like tropical drinks. And so I got a couple of those, and like they're doing them like in like growler bottles and stuff like that. And I kind of recreated our honeymoon, doing like Thai food or Asian food and tropical drinks, and trying to make it as like close as possible to make her feel like she's in Thailand. But
that's awesome, dude.
Difficult.
Well, Luke, you've always impressed me how far you went out of your way to try to make Casey happy, and that's awesome, man.
Always do my best,
Okay, so going from criminal defense to plaintiff's employment law, give us some big takeaways. What's the biggest difference?
Biggest difference, you're not in court. Like when you're a criminal defense attorney, you're in court every day a week, hopefully one county. If you could do the scheduling right, hopefully in 1 to 2 counties. You're not in court as often because, again, litigation can take between 18 and 24 months. And it's all about writing. It's really heavily writing. I'll be the first one to admit I'm not the best writer in the world. I've been fortunate enough to have a supervising attorney that is an excellent writer. And I've, in about 8 or 9 months, I've improved my writing exponentially. So it's a lot of writing. Facts matter more, like the minutia of facts matter more in these types of cases, I think, because a lot of criminal cases can get blended together. You can kind of hear the same fact patterns over and over again, especially with the cops doing the same things over and over again. So you get a little bit more variety, but the biggest thing is just, a lot more drafting involved. It's still fun though. I mean, you get to help people out, which is at the end of the day, I think most people become attorneys to help people out. And so that's one of the better takeaways from it.
That's awesome, man. So one of the things that Luke was exceptional at, a lot of things he was exceptional at, one of the big things was able to connect the clients and talk to people. And just watching him grow, for the 18 months he was here, have those soft skills helped you out with everything too?
Actually, that's probably the one thing I would complain most about. I don't get that, that client interaction anymore because like I said, a lot of these cases are, stretched out and like, hey, like if we're not giving you any information, that's a good thing. Like that means it's still sitting in court or we're doing depositions, we're in negotiations just to try to settle this claim. So you don't get that. I mean, with working for you, like you want to talk to your clients at least once a month. 2 months, that would be stretching it. If you talk to them like 2 months, you want to talk to them at least once a month and at least like, hey, there is no updates. I'm sorry, I wish there was an update. At least you get to talk to somebody and, hey, we know your case is still here. It's not somewhere, in the back corner collecting dust. So that was actually, I don't get to use those soft skills as much. I get to use it a little bit on intakes, but primarily, it's not as, engaging with the client until you're kind of towards the end of litigation. So like the last probably 5 or 6 months is when, all right, cool, let's set up a time to, try to get this thing settled. We can't do that. All right, well, let's just go to trial. And then, so you don't get as much as that. So yeah, it's, apples and oranges in that regards.
Yeah, there's different practices though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's something you adapt to.
Well, that's amazing. I never even had a single employment case ever. So you already have skill sets that are beyond me. So that's amazing, dude.
Yeah, it's easy to pick up on. It's hard to get good at it. I mean, it's really easy. I mean, our firm advertises really well. I mean, like I'm walking to my car. I almost get hit by a bus. My boss's face is on it. So I mean, we get a lot of calls. We get a lot of intakes. We're like, hey guys, like, and a lot of people think they've been wrongfully terminated. And I've kind of already come up with this thing. It's like, you've probably been unfairly terminated, but it's not unlawful. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of people say that, oh, I was wrongfully terminated. I'm like, you really weren't. I mean, it's definitely unfair, but you got to figure out like, hey, what kind of law does this fall under? And then will it survive summary judgment? It's the biggest thing, because if we put a bunch of money in these cases and we do depositions and like, there's no way it survives, like we're out, thousands of dollars.
What are the top 3 reasons people are wrongfully terminated? Not necessarily unfairly, but the one things that you're seeing.
A lot of like sexual harassment complaints, like, hey, they complain to their boss, like, hey, this person's being inappropriate. And then as the victim, they're like, all right, well, we're going to suspend you and then try to figure out the case. We're going to fire you and not fire the other person because they've been here longer. That kind of stuff. Once you complain about that, there's no reason for you to ever terminate the person that was coming to you. Like, hey, like, I mean, they could be lying. I mean, you can go to that aspect of things, but like, you should always err on the side of better judgment. It's easier to fire both of those employees than fire just one of them. But I wouldn't advise that either. But none of this is legal advice. But
we're just talking, man. Just talking.
just chatting.
So for sexual harassment stuff, what's another one?
Sexual harassment, we see a lot of stuff with the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA. This is when it comes to the unfair things. It's not unlawful. You will see people, you get 12 weeks per year. You can break it up in pieces. You can take an entire stint. And the FMLA is just like an ability to, hey, I'm sick, or I have my family member that's really sick, and I need to take off in an extended period of time. You have to hold my position or an equal position, reserve it for me while it's there. And while I'm on FMLA, we see a lot of people not getting briefed on it properly, and they extend that past that 12 weeks. Like, oh, well, my doctor says I'm not ready to go back. I need longer. You get that 12 weeks and you're done. And sorry, it's unfair, but it's not unlawful.
And how many employees does an employer have to qualify for the FMLA?
To fall under the FMLA, you have to have 50 employees.
So sexual harassment, FMLA, what's the third one you're seeing?
Third one, let's see here.
I am putting him on the spot. I didn't send him any questions. I literally texted him.
I'm trying
to Luke, let's do an interview.
You'll see stuff with trying to think. Age discrimination has been coming up a good bit lately, and this kind of borders unlawful and unfair again. You see a guy that was hired in like early 2000s. He's coming towards the twilight of his career. And it's a lot in sales for some reason. And I'm thinking it's just the way sales works. You get into your like mid 50s, early 60s, they kind of want you to retire because at that point you're bringing in like a $180,000 salary. And you're like, we can hire 2 guys straight out of college, pay them 70 each and be saving money and have just as much or a higher production of like sales. So I see a lot of that, and like a lot of people thinking like, hey, like they're replacing me with younger guys, and I'm like, yeah, and that you're not supposed to do that, and it's probably because you're getting towards your your twilight age, but they want to save money, and if they come up with the excuse like, yeah, we reduction of force, we're just trying to save money here, we can hire someone with less experience and pay them less and have the same productivity. We see some of that, but those cases are pretty difficult as well.
Are you guys seeing any kind of uptick in any type particular case with all these layoffs, unemployments, and everything like that?
Yeah, and that's the big, it's a big confusion going on right now, especially I've only been practicing this type of law for about 9 months, 10 months. And so for me, I'm not well versed in it. Like I'm getting, pretty well versed in it, but the EEOC came out the other day. This is how we need to handle these COVID-19 cases. If you're an employer, and then they immediately deleted it. The EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, literally said, this is what we need to do for these COVID cases. And then like, oh crap, there's some, ambiguity there. There's some, vagueness. Like maybe this is not what we do. And they just deleted it off from their website. So the people that run it, the administrative side, because you have to go to the EEOC for some of these cases, you have to exhaust your administrative remedies prior to even going into federal court. So, and that's not all the cases are not, go to EEOC, but like that's a good chunk of our cases. They do have to go there first. That's step one. And they don't know what's going on with COVID-19. So now you have all these attorneys, and like we have, several, probably like 100 attorneys, maybe less than 100 attorneys in the employment group, probably less than 100. And we're trying to all figure out how do we, not exploit these cases, but how do we figure out and help out people that probably gotten, terminated because of COVID-19. And a lot of things, it's a reduction of force. The economy's, hit hard. You want to make the plaintiff and the individual okay, but you have to understand these are companies trying to support employees. Yeah. They're paying people salaries and they get that, but they also have to be like, hey, like it's going to be either all of us or some of us. And it's been very interesting. Short of saying I'm firing you right now because of your COVID-19 diagnoses and we can't accommodate you because you have these other ailments. Short of that, it's very difficult to have one of these cases. And it should be interesting to see within the next 18 months of how these cases get filed. Do they go full litigation? Do they settle? It's a really good question and a really big question mark in this type of field right now.
Yeah, I'd be super concerned if I was an older worker in industry where there is a pattern of replacing them with younger people, because what a great time. Oh, it's COVID. We have slowed down. We got to get rid of these high. And, that sounds like it might be unfair, but it'd be easy to mask a little bit of age discrimination in there. And then
I think this COVID-19 thing is, a huge, like, I think it'd be very injustice when it comes to how a lot of employers who would, be inclined to be racially discriminative or sexually harass somebody or do something inappropriate against federal law. And they just like, nah, COVID-19, we fired him because we had a reduction of force and we couldn't afford them. And like, what are you going to say? You're like, all right, well, we're going to combat this. No, that is not how that happened. Like they fired him because of X, Y, Z, not because of COVID-19. And that's something that we're getting kind of some cases like that that are kind of pretextual in that matter. But again, until we file a lawsuit in federal court and figure it out down the road, we'll see how strong these cases are.
Luke, I'm right. Morgan & Morgan's a national law firm, correct?
Yeah, I would say national. I should probably know this off the top of my head. Another question that I was not prepared for. We're in a lot of states.
If somebody had a question in Indiana, could they give you a call? You get them to the right person?
Yeah. I believe we don't have an office in Indiana, but we have an office in Kentucky that operate, and they have attorneys that are licensed in Indiana. I'm licensed in Indiana. So if need be, I can do stuff.
Give us the best way to contact you. What's your best phone number? What's your best email?
Best email, again, putting me on my spot. Like, I don't email myself. All right. Yeah, little brand awareness like you, Morgan & Morgan. Best email is Luke Wingo at forthepeople.com. That's LUKE Wingo WINGO at forthepeople.com. And that's probably the best contact information. And the thing is, if you contact me via email and you're from Indiana or one of the surrounding states, I can put you in contact with the right people. Again, we never know what's going to happen with your type of case. We can put you in the intake system and hopefully you have something. But again, we never know. So.
Consults are always free. Am I right about that?
Consults are always free, and you can call as many times as you want. You might get the same answer several times. Like, nope, you can't take your case. You don't have a case here. And the thing is, Morgan, they don't just practice in employment law. They do personal injury law. I mean, that's what they're primarily, mass torts. They do that. They have medical mal. They have first-party insurance defense. So a lot of people that were affected in Nashville and the surrounding areas in regards to the tornado, if their insurance companies aren't paying out what they should be, pay them out. Otherwise, you can get an attorney with Morgan & Morgan and they can pay you out.
Make them insurance companies pay, man. They love collecting those premiums. They hate paying it out. Drives me crazy.
It is crazy. And like a lot of these business interruption things, it's like, hey, my business was interrupted. I have a good plan for insurance. And they're like, we're not going to pay you. And they do pay you out. Guess what? They're going to cancel you or heighten your premiums for the next 6 years. So it's like, why do we have insurance?
Dude, thanks so much for hanging out with me this morning, Luke. You have a great day, okay?
Hey, Mark, I always appreciate any time. You have a good one, okay? Tell everyone I said hi.